Right. Hey, Sylvia, you ready?
I'm ready when you are.
Okay, awesome. Hi, everyone. Thank you so much for coming to Parents Night Out. We are very excited to be offering this to our Yachad families and special needs community because I feel like Zoom has become such a trigger word for like school and really deep conversations that we're really excited to be able to offer parents the opportunity to come and relax and learn something for getting ready for Pesach. So we are so happy to have Sylvia Fallas here to help us get ready for Pesach. Just a little bit of information in case you're not aware. Yachad has been running an incredible lineup of programming over different social media platforms since everything started and schools and programs were closing. So if you haven't already checked it out, I recommend going to yachad.com/yachad on demand to see the history of what's been offered and also to keep up to date with what is happening in the near future. Both before and after Pesach. And for any parents out here that are interested, next Sunday at 8:30, we are going to be doing a parent group on prepping for Pesach, but keeping in mind the best way to set everything up to make sure that our children are going to be behaviorally successful. So I invite all of you guys to come and join us for that and to share it with anybody who you think would be interested in the content. So without further ado, I want to introduce Sylvia Fallas. Sylvia Fallas has a widespread Instagram platform that she uses to share recipes. She shares Syrian recipes. She shares non-Syrian recipes, lots of good comfort food. You can follow her at Sylvia Fallas, and she's also a very frequent contributor to the Facebook group, I Don't Cook, But I Give Out Recipes. So we are very lucky to have an expert here who will share with us some of her easy, delicious recipes for making Pesach. So thank you, Sylvia.
Okay, are we ready? Okay, hi everyone. Thank you so much for the great introduction, and thank you all for joining me here on this great platform. And before we start, first, thank you so much. And second, a little bit about myself in case you don't know me. I am a private chef and a chef educator, and my focus when I teach is Jewish cultural cooking. So I teach everybody from kids to adults to regular people to differently abled people. Basically, if you can pick up a spoon, you can cook with me. Even if you need help to pick up a spoon, you can cook with me. So everyone's totally welcome in my classroom. And I actually gave a class recently to a group of educators, and the focus of the class was how to use a cooking class with your students, or in this case with your kids, to get them to open up to discuss other topics. So when we're cooking, like I've got all my ingredients here, we're moving, like we're doing something. So we're cracking eggs, we're measuring sugar, we're measuring sauce, we're rolling out dough, whatever it is, we're doing something. And I find that kids open up more when they're doing something. It takes their minds off the topic. So especially in these times, it's a really great sort of activity to be able to do something with your kids, even if it's whipping like whipped cream, like you're doing something, you're talking, it opens up the bridge to conversation. So tonight I wanted to share a crustless chocolate chip cookie pie recipe. And there's a few reasons why I'm sharing it. First, it's delicious. Second, it's delicious. And third, it's really easy to make with ingredients that you can find anywhere. If you have access to a kosher supermarket, great. If you don't, you will most likely be able to find all of these ingredients in a regular store. So I just wanted to show off this lovely book here. This is from the OU, and if you don't have it, the physical copy, it's available online. And there's a few sections here that I wanted to highlight. This one is products that do not need a special certification for Passover. So it's basics like avocado oil, cocoa powder, coffee, coconut oil. And the main one that I really focus on here especially in my family, is nuts. Most raw nuts do not need a special hashgacha for Pesach. So you can buy them from Costco and they're totally fine. You don't need to like pay triple the amount. And if you don't have access to a kosher store, then you can still get your hands on them. So this is another section that I wanted to show you. And there's a bunch of pages here, but it's substitutions. So if you can't get, let's see, you can't get cream cheese, you can substitute cottage cheese and margarine. Well, I'd use butter. Oh, that's me. So it's got really good substitutions, and that can be really useful. And we are going to start. So I invite you to ask questions by pressing the more button, and you can hit chat and type your question, or I may not see it right away, or you can hit the clapping hands button, and clapping hands or a thumbs up will pop up on your screen, and one of the other mods will yell at me to answer your question. And once we finish this segment, we're going to do a whole Pesach Q&A. So if anything pops up into your head that's not directly related, please ask me because I will give you an answer. Okay, so we are going to start with our almond flour. So what is almond flour? Almond flour is, and we need 2.5 cups. So while I measure, I'll show you what I'm measuring. So almond flour is basically almonds that have been, this is the brand that I'm using, but if you have Costco near you, the Kirkland brand in the light blue bag is acceptable for Pesach. I believe it's 3 pounds for $13. So almond flour is almonds that have been blanched and skinned, which means the skins have been taken off and ground into flour. So this is like the most processed form of ground almonds, but since the skin has been removed, it literally has like a powdery, floury consistency. It also doesn't have a very almondy taste, so that's why we use it here. It's different from like that ground speckly almond fluff you can find because that has the skin and this doesn't. It's not gritty, it's really soft. It's actually the best gluten-free baking substitute for Pesach. So we're gonna add 2.5 cups. And I'm wearing gloves, so I'm just going to quickly run my hands through here to break up any clumps. So since almonds naturally have a lot of fat, you can like squeeze it together and get almost a clump. So I'm just gonna break those up so we don't get any clumps in our final cookie pie. If you've ever had like Toll House pie or Blondie bars, this is what we're going for. And I want something like super gooey, so I'm gonna even underbake it. So we have our almond flour, and then we're going to use baking powder. So we need 1 tablespoon of baking powder. And if you cannot get Passover baking powder, you can skip it. Your pie just won't puff up. It'll be more like a blondie than like a Toll House pie. I'm just gonna use a fork or spoon or my gloved hands to blend that in. So I'm gonna use my fingers. One of the reasons that I chose this recipe is it's really simple. It's also really hard to mess up. So you can let your kids do this. Sometimes what I do for my kids is pre-measure everything and then just have them dump and stir.
Do you feel the people that are listening? Yeah. Hello?
Was that a question?
Oh, yes.
Yeah. Okay, so let's keep going. We are going to add 2 eggs beaten. And when I teach kids, one of the things that I get a kick out is asking them how to do things before showing them how to do things. So I teach a group of 6th and 7th graders at our farm shul, and we really dive into like the Jewish cultural cooking aspect. So we were making noodle pogo, and it called for orange juice. So I gave them oranges, and I said, we're gonna juice the oranges. And they looked at me like I had 3 heads. And I said, well, guys, how do you open the orange? And they looked at me like I was crazy. So one of the kids took the orange and started hitting it against the counter. And I'm like, guys, we need to get the juice out. How are we going to get the juice out? So something that I took for granted was like kind of like a problem solving thing. So you can show your kids an egg and ask them what's the best way to crack an egg. So most people will go like this on the side of a bowl, but that's inviting pieces of eggshell into your final dish. So I'm going to give it 1 nice tap on the counter, 2 for good luck. And then I'm going to crack it into a glass bowl or a glass cup or anything see-through so that I can check it for blood spots. My students always get a big kick out of this. Oops, lost some. We're going to do 2 eggs. And the eggs here are the glue, which kind of holds this cake or pie together. If you don't have eggs, because I know there is a shortage, or if you don't want to use eggs, you can use applesauce, pear sauce, or banana. It doesn't really have an applesauce or banana taste, so you're welcome to substitute that, and that would make it a vegan pie. So I'm just going to gently mix this in, and we need brown sugar. So we're going to use 1.5 cups of brown sugar. Yes, this is a very sweet pie. I personally use less, and I use about a cup because it's really, really sweet, and we're gonna add a lot of chocolate. So why brown sugar? I like to use brown sugar in Pesach desserts because it's got moisture in it. It's not as dry, and everyone knows a Pesach dessert staple is the dryness. So I have our brown sugar, and I'm going to be right back. My coconut oil is melting. So, whoa, okay. This is coconut oil. So, if you look in our trusty OU book, which I have here, there's about 80 brands that are kasher lePesach without any extra marking. So if you have access to any supermarket or Amazon, you can find coconut oil. That is acceptable. So if you don't want to use coconut oil, you can use margarine or you can use butter. I personally like coconut oil because it's inexpensive, it's shelf stable, and we can pretend that the health benefits of it, which there are none, apply here. So I'm going to measure out 1/2 cup of coconut oil. And coconut oil comes in jars as a solid. See, like the texture of margarine or butter. But I like to set my jar on a hot stovetop or in a bowl of hot water so that it melts, because it's much easier to measure it when it's melted. So it's either a stick of butter, a stick of margarine, or 1/2 cup of coconut oil, and then we are going to mix. And I've timed myself making this without my chatting. I can do it in like 30 seconds. So we're just going to mix it all up until it's smooth. And somebody always asks, can I make this into cookies? The answer is no. They will fall apart and they'll spread, and you'll get one big pile of burnt cookies. This recipe really needs a pan so that it'll keep its shape. Otherwise, you'll just get a mess, an expensive, wasted mess. If you want a Pesach chocolate chip cookie recipe that does not call for potato starch, I like the one from the website Against All Grain. If you go to againstallgrain.com and put in chocolate chip cookies, she has like 4 recipes. I like the one that's called Perfect Chocolate Chip Cookies, but they're all good. So we have our smooth dough / batter, and there's no streaks of any of our ingredients. And now for the fun part. chocolate chips. So you want to make sure it says real chocolate chips. You don't want chocolate flavored chips. You don't want chocolate colored chips. You want the real deal. So I like it super chocolatey, so I'm going to add about most of the bag and mix it up. I love that sound of the chocolate hitting the glass. So I'm going to mix it up, and here's the part where I tell you that the recipe calls for vanilla extract and almond extract. And here's the part where I tell you I'm too cheap to buy either one for Pesach, to use a tablespoon in 8 days. So, you can skip it. Nobody will ever know. If you want to be super healthy here, you can add in craisins, you can add in nuts, you can even add in blueberries instead of the chocolate chips, and tell your kids it's a giant muffin. We're going to take our dough and put it in a 9-inch round pan. You can also use, I'm using my hands with gloves. You can also make this in an 8-inch square pan, or you can double it and make it in a 9x13 pan. And I'm just gonna press it out so it's nice and even. And you wanna make sure it's even, otherwise it won't bake evenly. And here we go for the fun part. I'm gonna take some of the chocolate chips left behind, no chocolate chip left behind. And I'm just going to sprinkle them on top and kind of squish them in. So that way it looks like I mix them so that all the chips landed on top. Sorry for the bad lighting, but here's what we've got. So I made one pan. You can also use those mini cupcake size foil ramekins and make individual ones and serve them with a scoop of ice cream. If you want to make your own Pesach ice cream, you can make it out of sweetened condensed milk, and you can Google no churn ice cream sweetened condensed milk, and there's like 8 billion recipes out there. And you basically mix up a bunch of ingredients, put it in a loaf pan, freeze it, and scoop. So this goes in the 350-degree oven for about 25 to 35 minutes, depending on how gooey you like it. I like it basically raw in the middle, but when you take it out, it should jiggle slightly. If it's set, it'll be burnt. So you want it to jiggle slightly, and you want it to cool on the counter for a little while. Now, here's the bonus part of the recipe. You can take this and put this in your fridge or in your freezer and bake it when you're ready to eat. Just let it come to room temperature. So last year I made 3 of these and took it out in the morning from the fridge, popped it in right as I was clearing the dishes, and we had a fresh dessert with no effort on the spot. So I'm gonna put this aside and let's get to the questions. Okay. Do we have any? Oh, we have questions. Let's see. Okay. So I'm going to be sending the recipe to everybody, and there's a link. How much applesauce or banana? Half a banana or about 1/4 to 1/3 of a cup of applesauce. Just make sure you're using unsweetened applesauce. Any other questions? You can put your little hand emoji and I'll find you. No other questions? Let's see. No more hand emojis. Now
Sylvia, if I make it,
yeah, I'm the Mora.
if
Yeah.
I make it in minis, is it like 15 minutes or it's still gonna be 25 minutes?
Start it at like 10 to 12 minutes, depending on how small you make your minis. Okay. And just keep checking it, because if it's underbaked, you can always put it back in for a minute or two. But let me rearrange this. If it's overbaked, like it's gone.
You still want it to be gooey.
Like you still want it to be like jiggly in the middle. So I would start at 10 minutes and see how it goes. Someone asked me, instead of eggs, so you don't need, if you're using a foil pan, there's so much coconut oil here that you won't really have to grease it. I also don't really care for the Pesach spray because it doesn't always work. So if you're using like a ceramic pan, just give it a brush with oil or use a little bit of spray. And the banana or applesauce is instead of eggs. Okay, any other questions? Let's keep scrolling. I don't see everybody. Okay, perfect. So let's get to our questions that were emailed and texted to me. But before I get to these, does anybody have a question about anything Passover food related that I can answer? Anything? Like literally anything. Like give me your best one. Okay, so we'll start here. So
Sylvia, what are you making for your main dish on the Seder?
for my main dish on the Seder, I am doing, oh my goodness. I'm doing two. It took me a minute. So I'm doing two. I'm doing a brisket with mushroom, leeks, and herbs, and wine, of course. And I'm doing braised lamb shanks with a lot of different spices and dried fruit and carrots and celery and leeks and onions.
Nice.
Speaking of, I bought a case of mushrooms, which is 25 pounds. So if anyone lives in Brooklyn and needs some mushrooms, you know, can come shop in my
I
fridge.
got them at Aldi for 59 cents
No, don't worry. I bought a
this
case.
week.
Okay. I see a question. Let's see. Okay. What vegetable sides are you making? So I'm making roasted sweet potatoes. I'm making roasted root vegetables. I'm making stir-fried mushrooms and asparagus. Let's see. I'm making roasted mini potatoes with oregano and lemon. Had another good one. Oh, I'm making a sauteed cauliflower rice dish that I know my kids will eat. But really, it's so late that everyone really just snacks on like the food earlier in the day that by the time the meal comes out, no one's really hungry. So let's see. Okay, what's the best breadcrumb substitute? I hate using matzah meal. I don't use matzah meal. I don't buy it. I don't own it. So you can definitely use potato chips, but Perig brand makes these breadcrumbs that look like the same like tall skinny bag with the window as all year, and they're gluten-free and they're actually pretty good. I personally buy the original because I find the other ones super salty, but that is my go-to. And let's see, I saw another question. What homemade sauces to use for meat and chicken? Okay, so I make my own homemade barbecue sauce. It's really easy. I do have a recipe, but I'm trying to think. I kind of like wing it, but if you Google like paleo barbecue sauce, you'll find a lot of easy recipes, and you can skip the soy sauce and substitute balsamic vinegar. I also do a lot of pesto, and I do a dry rub for chicken. That's paprika, garlic powder, salt, pepper, and a little oregano. Rub olive oil on your chicken, and then just get the dry rub over the skin, under the skin, put it in a roasting pan with a little broth, onions, and wine, and you can roast it like that. Let's see. So another question. Another breadcrumb substitute, Cooper's crumbs. Okay, never heard of those, but I also know that the restaurant in Manhattan, Abigail's, does their own breadcrumbs. Like they do a gluten-free panko, and they're worth ordering if you can get them. So let's see. Oh, this was my favorite question. I can't get a lot of Pesach ingredients. Where can I look for recipes? So I do have a lot of Pesach cookbooks, and I find that potato starch is the most commonly used ingredient, and it's just not my favorite. I find it makes everything taste kind of heavy and dull. So I tell a lot of my clients, look for paleo and look for keto recipes. Those recipes don't have any gluten anyway. So they're not substituting. Like they're not telling you like, oh, bake this cake, but swap out the flour for almond flour. these are recipes that'll work anyway. And a lot of them are very meat heavy, so it'll work for Pesach. A lot of them, if you Google like paleo slow cooker recipes, you'll find tons. Keto recipes tend to have a lot of dairy or heavy cream, but it's worth looking for. Two of my favorites are Paleo Running Mama. She has an Instagram and she has a website, and she just came out with a book. And she has some amazing chicken recipes. And also anything that she bakes is totally worth looking at, because first of all, they're good. And second, she has small kids. So her kids are eating this stuff. Like, they're really good. And then another one is Against All Grain. Here, I'm going to type it. Give me a second. So Against All Grain, Paleo Running, and then Against All Grain. So the author of Against All Grain, she has a bunch of books, but her website has most of the same content. So don't feel like you need to buy the book. But she does like a sort of version of paleo, but it's like even more like intricate, because she has an autoimmune disease. But for comfort food recipes, she is top. So it's, let me type it. I did type it. So she's really good. She does these like crispy breadsticks that are like crackers that my kids love, and that's almond flour based. She does great snickerdoodle cupcakes. She does a brownie recipe. She has a lot of like meat and chicken recipes too. I find a lot of her recipes are kind of pork heavy, but I've just swapped out like a chuck roast for a pork roast, and everything works fine. She does avoid certain vegetables, but she puts in her notes that you can use them if that's something that you eat. Okay, any other questions from you guys before I go to my next one? Okay. Yeah, you can chat or raise your hand. You guys are not in 3rd grade, because my kids always put the hand raising emoji up. Okay, so let's go back to, let's go to this one. What are your favorite Passover desserts? So the cookie pie I just made, and I'm gonna type it after I finish speaking so you can save it. The Bon Appetit cocoa-based brownies are delicious. It's basically cocoa, margarine, butter, or coconut oil, eggs, chocolate chips, baking powder, if you have it, and it only calls for 1/3 of a cup of flour. So since flour is really not prevalent in the recipe, you can substitute it with almond flour. You can substitute it with ground almonds or ground walnuts. You can substitute it with even potato starch, cake meal, whatever like flour swap you have. It's really good. I make them all year with almond flour, and you can even sprinkle sea salt on top. And then let me write that. So that's like a really good one. Oh, I'm not sending this to everyone. Here. Bone. And Against All Green. And she has a website. Okay. And another great dessert is Snickerdoodle cupcakes. The recipe is from Against All Grain. If it's not on her website, you can text me or email me, and I'll send you a picture from the book. They came out last year. Amazing. And I found on some random Instagram page a woman who made frosting out of sweet potatoes for her kid's 1st birthday, because she didn't want her kid to have any added sugar. Yeah, whatever. So I said, what if I use a white Japanese sweet potato and blend it? So I took a Japanese sweet potato, which is reddish on the outside and white, whitish yellow on the inside. I roasted it whole until it was almost like mush. I peeled it and I put it in the food processor with unsweetened coconut and a drizzle of maple syrup, and I blended it until it looked like frosting. And then I piped it onto the cupcakes. And I actually have a picture of it, and it came out amazing. Nobody knew there was coconut or sweet potato in that. Okay, let's see. And then if you want an amazing dairy dessert, you can do dairy matzo crack, which is basically a sheet of matzo, and it has a homemade caramel, which is just butter and brown sugar melted together, poured on top. Then when that starts to set, you just smear chocolate chips over the top so they melt into it, and then you sprinkle sea salt on top. So that's always a hit, but you have to make it dairy. It doesn't work with margarine. It just bubbles and burns. Okay, can you send us the recipe for the sweet potato icing? I'm gonna type it right here. 1 Japanese white sweet potato, baked whole until super soft. Peel and scoop out flesh into food processor and blend with a splash of maple syrup and shredded or ground unsweetened coconut. So when you're making the sweet potato frosting, the one thing you want to watch out for is the sweet potatoes have different levels of water content. So you may need to add more coconut to get it to be the right consistency. And I just piped it from a Ziploc bag with an icing tip onto my cupcakes. And then if you have a food processor or blender, banana ice cream, which is also called nice cream, is a really good, easy dessert. It's just frozen bananas blended up with a splash of maple syrup. And that's a great one. It's really easy. And my kids always like chocolate dipped fruit. You can do fresh fruit, you can do dried fruit. Just give them a little bit of melted chocolate chips and let them dip and put it on wax paper or parchment paper so it doesn't stick. Okay. Any other questions before I go on to the next one? Okay, so let's go on to the next one. This is my favorite question. What do I feed my picky children? So first off, I like to tell everyone, what do they eat normally? Most likely what they eat normally can sort of be transferred into a Passover dish. So I know that my kids' guaranteed meal is meatballs. They will always eat a meatball. So I've served meatballs for breakfast. I've served meatballs for lunch. I've served meatballs for dinner. They will eat it on a toothpick. They will eat it on a skewer. They will eat it with a fork. So something that your kid likes that's not Passover specific is a great way to sort of get them to eat other foods. So my kids are used to meatballs over spaghetti or pasta, but they won't eat the Passover pasta. So I buy those like divided plates from Target, and I'll put their safe food, which is meatballs, in the middle, and a small portion of something new for them to try on the side. So you can also try like zucchini noodles, and I find that if you saute them, they come out like super watery and mushy. I like to spread them on a sheet pan and roast them until they're kind of shriveled, and it kind of takes away the zucchini flavor, and it also doesn't make them like a big bowl of wet, mushy pasta substitute. And something really cool are serrated cookie cutters. You can use those to cut shapes out of chicken cutlets. Like you can make a dinosaur chicken cutlet or a star chicken cutlet, and then you can bread it and bake it, or bread it and fry it. So those are really good. Oh, hearts of palm noodles. Yes, those are really good. those hearts of palm noodles. Really creepy because they come in a can. Like, who would have thought, like, noodles in a can? But they're really, really good. You can also buy a crinkle cutter. It kind of looks like a flat metal piece with a handle, and you can use that to crinkle cut carrots or cucumbers or parsnips or zucchini, and they can eat them raw or you can roast it. It's really like a fun way to serve the same old vegetable. And something else that I find kind of cool is, I got to move this because my iPad is holding it. You can do, so this one has a stand in the back, but I've done it on this side. You can take a cutting board or any wooden board and make a snack board. So it doesn't necessarily need to be only snacks. You can do one with like deli, like sliced turkey or deli, or cheese and Pesach crackers, whatever you think they'll eat. If you display it really nicely with fruits and vegetables, you'd be surprised at what they may pick up. I also put anything a little bit like liquidy or like something weird that they may definitely not eat in a little ramekin or a little bowl, so that way if they go nuts, I can take it off. Okay, wait, I just see a question. Let's see. The hearts of palm noodles. They make Pesach ones. They come in a black can. I don't remember the name, but there's one called Palmini. And those might be kosher for Passover. This autocorrect is killing me. Okay, so someone else asked me, like, what do you do to kind of take the stress out of preparing? Yes, that's it, in the black can. What do you do to take the stress out of preparing every meal for 8 days when you really can't go out for anything? I mean, I know there are Pesach takeout options and there's Passover. Well, this year we don't have restaurants, but there's takeout and delivery options, but it's really not cost effective, and to be honest, it's really not very good. So I just kind of come up with a plan. I know a lot of kids like routine, they like structure, they like to see their options. So we'll sit together and we'll write a menu, and you'd be surprised at what they'll eat. Like, mine will eat the Passover cereal. Like, if I show it to them, like, would you like this for breakfast? They'll eat it. So we do like a breakfast, lunch, dinner plan sort of in advance, and everything is up for change, but at least it gives you some semblance of, okay, like, we're gonna have this for lunch, or we're gonna have this for dinner. And I usually do leftovers for lunch at least once because it's just easy. I know I have it and I know it's there. So another thing that I know my kids will eat is anything on a grill. So, like, if they're gonna eat hot dogs for dinner, I'll serve burgers with it, because you never know what they might eat, what they would eat. I've also had like decent luck making Passover rolls. Like, you can use, if you Google like dinner roll recipes using baking powder, you can make like a pretty decent like almond flour sort of biscuit slash roll that comes out good, and it'll hold a hamburger. So as long as they're eating like something, we're better than them eating nothing. Okay, let's see. I think I saw another question. Okay, any other questions from anybody here? If not, I will answer one of these. Okay, so someone asked, like, what do I do about the leftovers? Like, they're not going to eat it as is. Like, how many days in a row can you eat the Thanksgiving turkey? Like, how many days in a row can you eat the Seder brisket? So I like to tell people, kind of mix it up. If you have brisket that's been sliced sitting in gravy, take it out of the juice, pat it dry, cut it into cubes, And you can saute it with an onion and garlic and some leftover boiled potatoes and serve it with a little bit of hot sauce and an egg on top and call it something different. They do not need to know it's the same thing over and over. You can shred up leftover roasted chicken and you can mix it with homemade or store-bought Passover barbecue sauce. You can serve that over a salad or on matzah. And there's really, like, if you Google like how to repurpose this dish, you'll find so much stuff. Eggs are also a really big hit in my house. My kids will eat hard-boiled eggs. They'll eat an omelet. They will eat, so they're pretty good with eggs. I also find it fun to kind of let them do like an omelet bar. I'll take out all the leftover cooked vegetables and let them choose what they want. And I'll stand there and make a big show of chopping it up and folding it into their egg mixture and making them their own omelet. So do you slice meat before you freeze? Yes. You always want to slice meat before you freeze. It'll defrost quicker and it'll reheat evenly. Oh my God. So here's the best way to freeze a piece of roast. You're gonna cook your roast in liquid, and then you're gonna take let's pretend this is my roast. You're gonna cook your roast in a pan of liquid. When it comes out of the oven, you can let it cool down a little bit. You're gonna take your meat out of the liquid, and you're gonna put it in a heavy layer of foil. You're gonna wrap it tightly, and you're gonna put it in the fridge. And your pan of liquid, you're gonna wrap tightly and put it in the fridge separately. In a few hours or the next morning, when everything is cold, you'll take your meat and you'll slice it into thin, even slices. So the reason we slice meat cold is because when we cook meat, all the collagen and all the fat in the meat kind of melts, and that's why it gets soft and it gets that nice melt in your mouth texture. But if we try to cut a hot piece of brisket, it'll just shred and fall apart. If you're looking for shredded, totally go for that. But if you want neat, even slices, you want to chill it beforehand. And we chill the gravy or the sauce, so the braising liquid, because in the morning when you take it out and open the pan, you can take a fork or a spoon and scrape off all the solidified fat, and that way your sauce won't be greasy. So now we have our skimmed gravy and our piece of meat that's been sliced. We're going to combine the two, cover it tightly with foil, label it, and freeze. You want to defrost it in the fridge for as long as possible, and then just reheat it. You can reheat it at whatever temperature your oven is at. Let's see, another question. Okay, my apricot brisket is in Celia's oven. So the other day I shared an apricot brisket recipe and she made it already. Okay, any more questions before we continue? Oh, come on, someone asked me a question. Give me a good one. No good ones? Okay, so someone asked me, like, where are you doing your shopping this year? So a lot of stores in Brooklyn have stopped taking orders. They're not doing deliveries. So I kind of went outside my main sources, and a lot of wholesalers have lost their restaurant business. So they are opening to the public. So if you're in the New York area, I'll type it. Baldor is, this is how you spell it. B-A-L-D, it's one word. Baldor is a restaurant supplier. So they supply produce and meat and cheese and dairy to some of the best restaurants and caterers in the city, but they are no longer supplying to restaurants. So they opened up the floor to home deliveries, and they'll deliver it outside your house. Their minimum is $2.50, but if you're buying a lot, especially if you're including eggs, like, it's worth it. You can also split it with a friend or family member. So something to look at. Not everything is sold in cases. You can get most items like a half case or just a few pieces, And the good thing about them is you can place your order at 10 p.m. for next day delivery if you're a last minute person like me. And if you need 80 dozen eggs, they're also your people. So another, let's see, another question. Hold on. Okay. What essential tools would you use for your Passover kitchen? So essential tools: a mixing bowl, baking dishes or foil pans, a rubber spatula, dry measuring cups and liquid measuring cups, small glass bowls or cups, and I think it's really important to kind of go through your menu and just make sure there's nothing that you're missing. Like if you're making zoodles as a side dish, make sure you're buying them already zoodled or you have a spiralizer. Like it would be a real shame to start making the, let's say, the bolognese sauce to go with the zoodles and realize you have no way to cut those spirals. So that's a really good option to have for Pesach and all year. Something that I do every year is I treat myself to something fun that's kitchen related for Pesach. So when Pesach is done, I just use it all year. So one year I bought myself a spiralizer, used it for 8 days straight, and then just left it in the kitchen and continued using it. So I like that. And something super, super, super important, which I always forget every year, is you know those little labels, meat, dairy, parve? Buy those, because you're not going to remember next year if this was meat, dairy, or parve. But I bought my labels, I'll stick it on, and next year I will hopefully remember, because all the color coding goes out the window when the green one is $2 and all the other ones are $5. So that's just a good tip, because you're probably not going to remember it. Something else that someone had mentioned to me last year was, instead of buying tons and tons and tons of disposable dishes and silverware, she bought 2 really inexpensive, cheap sets of dishes on clearance. She said she found one at Macy's that was missing a few pieces and it was super cheap. And she said she had no place to store them, so she just donated them. She said when Pesach was over, she just donated them to Goodwill. So that's a really good option, because you're going to spend the money anyway. So let someone else get use of it instead of tossing it after every meal. Okay, I'll do one more question. These are great tips. Thank you, thank you, thank you. Okay, what are some great room temperature sides? So sweet potatoes are great room temperature. Zoodles are great room temperature. One of my favorite cold side dishes is quinoa tabbouleh. Instead of using cracked wheat or bulgur in tabbouleh, I use quinoa. I cook the quinoa in advance. I just fluff it with a fork, and then before we want to eat, I make the tabbouleh. I just chop up parsley, scallions, cucumber, tomato, mix it all together. You can add mint if you want to, and dress it with a little bit of lemon juice, olive oil, and salt. And it's good cold or room temperature. You can also serve like a quinoa type of, like a quinoa rice pilaf type dish cold. I saute onions and garlic and then just cook my quinoa in that same pot, and it gives it a really good flavor. Also, if you're using quinoa this crowd, even though most of the kosher brands say they're pre-rinsed, they still have that funky dirt taste, so please wash your quinoa even if it says it's washed. Okay, any other questions? Come on, someone raise your hand. My kids are more fun because they raise their hands. Okay. Wait, I saw one that I didn't answer. Hold on. Chat. Okay, what are your daughter's favorite Pesach meals? So my older daughter's favorite is a cheese plate. I make these Pesach crackers, and I put those with some dried fruit, some cut up vegetables, and all different types of cheeses on a plate or a board, and she is thrilled with that. My younger daughter likes meatballs or grilled chicken, which are both easy. I saw someone raising their hand, but then the hand button disappeared. So if you could raise your hand again, I'm looking for you. Toby, did you see who raised their hands?
I did not, but I can go back and check.
Yeah, I don't know how to go back and check. Also, another great Passover side dish is Miriam Pascal Overtime Cook. She makes these, she calls them doughless potato knishes, and they're really, really good for Passover. It's basically mashed potatoes with potato starch baked into muffin cups, and they're really, really good. Okay, how can I warm up my chicken so it doesn't get dry? Let's see. Okay, so everyone, let's see, what type of chicken? This isn't my iPad, so my typing is getting a little nuts. Okay, if you're doing roasted chicken, put it in a 9x13 pan, real foil, whatever. Add a little broth, a little wine, a little water, and just cover it and reheat it like that. If you're doing chicken cutlets, my best tip is do not overcook them to begin with. Chicken cutlets in a sauce, like a chicken piccata or chicken marsala type dish, will heat up better than just like a grilled or like a dry chicken cutlet. If you're doing grilled chicken, I just serve it cold or room temperature on a salad. And I just answered, so you want to add a little broth to the bottom of the pan. Broth, wine, water, vodka, whatever floats your boat. Okay. Is it bad to store cooked food in the fridge in disposable tins? My daughter is driving me crazy to use old containers. Okay, so I can only speak for myself, but I store food in disposable pans in the fridge. I'm still here to tell the tale. If it really freaks you out, you can just line the pan with parchment paper, but gotta do what you gotta do. And in this lifetime, I will never amass enough reusable containers to put all of my Pesach leftovers. Okay, wait. Substitute for flour and chicken piccata, potato starch. 1 spoon of potato starch makes you gag a little, but it goes a long way. It also makes a beautiful roux if you want to make a cheese sauce, because my kids will drink cheese sauce on Passover. I also use, one second, I also put like a basic roux white sauce with a little bit of cheese over cauliflower, and we call it cauliflower and cheese. You can top it with like Pesach breadcrumbs and bake it if you want to be fancy. Okay, one second, I see one more question. Okay, substitute for mushrooms and chicken marsala when you can't get them. Okay, so can you not get mushrooms, or do you only use peeled vegetables? Let's type. Okay. Okay, so a substitute for mushrooms would be frozen artichoke bottoms. You can just defrost them and cut them up really small. You can also use very thin slices of zucchini, artichoke. If it's not Passover, or if you eat kidney, you can use peas. In terms of not shopping much at the moment, frozen artichoke bottoms. Okay, frozen artichoke bottoms or fresh spinach. You can toss in fresh spinach at the end of any salty chicken type recipe, and that'll be really good. Okay, I saw another one. Any other questions? I think we have time for 1 or 2 more. Any other? Oh, someone asked for the cookie pie recipe. Here it is if you want to take a quick picture, but I'm going to send it in 1 minute. I'm actually going to type in what you can Google, and then I'll share it. For the cookie pie recipe, Google reluctant entertainer crustless cookie pie. That's the cookie pie recipe. Oh, I wanted to send it to everyone. Okay. Cookie pie is reluctant entertainer cookie pie. Okay, so do I make chicken soup? Yes, I do make chicken soup, and yes, I can share the recipe. Super, super simple. I make a 10.5 or an 11 quart pot, and I use one whole chicken or a chicken cut into quarters or eighths. My kids actually like the chicken, so I have no problem using such a big amount of chicken. And I buy those like mesh soup bags, and I stuff the chicken in the soup bag with a couple of garlic cloves, a bunch of dill, a bunch of parsley, and a few black peppercorns. I tie it all up, put it in the pot, and then I add a couple of whole peel carrots, whole peeled celery stalks. I find peeling the celery stalks is important because it takes away that outer layer of like stringy bitterness. A couple of peeled parsnips and a whole onion, and a lot of salt, like a palm full of salt, like 3 tablespoons of salt. And I let it come to a boil, and then I cook it for like 10 to 12 hours. The longer you cook it, the better it tastes. You can also add in a turkey neck if you want, or an extra pack of chicken bones if you like a really rich broth. But the longer you cook it, the better. And I cook it with the lid on, like the lid barely cracked open. And that way it'll cook, but it won't evaporate. Okay. Tips for keeping my celery fresh. So a lot of people in our community use celery as the karpas. So how to keep your celery fresh so it doesn't go wilty: cut off the leaves at the top and wrap it in tinfoil. If you wrap your celery in tinfoil and put it in the crisper drawer of your fridge, it'll last for a month. And it'll be like super crispy. Okay, any other questions? I can answer one more. And I guess no more, but as always, you are welcome to find me and ask me any question that ever comes to mind, and I'm always happy to answer if I can. So thank you so much for joining me, and here's my cookie pie. I hope you make it. Thank you.
Thank you, Sylvia, and thank you for coming. Have a great Pesach.
Thank you.
Thank you.